Just ahead on Tempo in Depth, Pennsylvania is one of the oldest states in the nation, but we're not looking back to colonial times. We're talking about the age of the people who live here. Right now, 2.7 million people aged 60 or older live in the Keystone State, and that number will grow by almost 1 million people by 2030 as baby boomers start and continue to retire. They're getting older and at the same time taking care of their own parents. Tonight, we have tips for you and your loved ones when it comes to staying happy in retirement for everything from health to housing. This hour-long look at elder care starts right now on Tempo in Depth.
The people of Air Products feel privileged to bring this programming to you. By supporting education and the arts, Air Products strives to improve the quality of life here in the Lehigh Valley, where we call home.
You're safe at home at Luther Crest, a Diacon senior living community in Allentown. Our mission is to offer premier accommodations and services so residents can cultivate a healthy and fulfilling retirement. At Luther Crest, we offer independent living apartments and cottages, personal care, skilled nursing, rehabilitative services, and more. Plus, the Luther Crest team strives to provide each person family-like support. You might say it's like a home run. Luther Crest.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Laura McHugh, filling in for Amy Burkett. Amy will be back next week. Tonight, we talk about the issues facing seniors. We're welcoming many into our studio audience today, some from Luther Crest, some from Moravian Village there in the front row, as well as some from Country Meadows. So we thank them for being here today for this conversation. You know, there's 40 million seniors over age 65 in America, and we begin tonight's coverage with a look at one of the most tragic and devastating diseases to affect this population. Reports estimate that 1 in 3 seniors will die with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. This progressive illness takes a toll on the entire family. I learned more about it at Phoebe Ministries, which has been awarded for its excellence in care by the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. Every 68 seconds, an American senior develops Alzheimer's disease. Researchers don't fully understand what causes it, but they do know Alzheimer's affects 5 million people, making it America's most common form of dementia.
And the projections are really quite sobering. The Rush Institute for Healthy Aging just released a study saying that by 2050 we expect there to be 14 million people affected by Alzheimer's disease.
The disease attacks the parts of the brain that control thinking, memory, and language, and symptoms get worse with time.
When we think about dementia, when we think about Alzheimer's disease, we picture the person who's in the middle stages. So the person who's very forgetful and maybe doesn't know who they are or where they are. But in fact, the disease process starts long, long before we see those symptoms.
Dr. Kelly Carney, Executive Director of Phoebe Ministries Center for Excellence in Dementia Care, says the first signs may be subtle: getting lost or disoriented in the grocery store, or having trouble managing a checkbook. For Ed Keller, that was the first symptom he noticed in his mother, Helen.
At the time, there had been a lot of people probably covering for her as far as the bank and the township building. She would just hand them the checkbook and they would take care of it for her.
Over the past 6 years, Ed watched as Helen's health deteriorated to the point where she could no longer live independently.
I'm sure she recognizes me to a point as far as saying my name. She'll say my name or my brother's name or my father's name, but putting a name with the face, I'm not sure she does that.
Today, Helen lives in the cottage at Phoebe Richland, a 21-bed skilled nursing unit for residents in the middle and late stages of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. Currently, there's no cure, but staff work to improve the quality of life for residents.
I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair, yes, hair.
Community Life Coordinator Connie Queer leads this group of seniors in an activity called Memory Bingo.
Rita, did you ever change the color of your hair?
This version is based on classic Broadway tunes.
You couldn't play bingo and ask them things that happened today or 5 years ago, but you can ask them things that happened 20 years ago, and they remember that. Climb every mountain. So if you have mountain, you want to put a chip on it.
With follow-up questions, Connie gets the group to reminisce.
You might say, did anybody here ever have a sweetheart? What did you do on Valentine's Day? And it just sparks reminiscing, because the main focus is engagement and stimulation. And you get them to open up and talk about things that they're familiar with and what they remember.
In these activities, Connie uses an adaptation of the Montessori approach, often associated with early childhood education. It involves learning about each resident's history and creating individualized opportunities to engage them.
It really looks at what are the strengths of the individual and what is it that they can still do. Not what have they lost, but what are they still able to do.
Experts say it improves residents' self-esteem and cuts down on the behaviors often associated with dementia patients, giving residents here a meaningful life instead of simply ways to pass the time. To continue our discussion of Alzheimer's and dementia, I'm joined by Claire Day. Claire is the Vice President for Constituent Services for the Delaware Valley chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. We'll also hear from Tim Neiman. Tim's father has a very specific form of Alzheimer's. It's called Lewy body dementia. Tim, for myself and for many of the people watching tonight, we've never heard of Lewy body before. What is it?
Well, neither had we as well. Lewy body is an Alzheimer's-related dementia that my father was diagnosed probably about 3 years ago. It has specific characteristics such as hallucinations, a lot of paranoia, and also some Parkinson's symptoms that go with it, with stuttered speech from time to time or shuffling of the feet, those sort of things. Not quite as prevalent in my father, but the other two are very pronounced.
And you said it progressed very quickly.
Yeah, it came on about 3 years ago. I noticed some signs here and there, and then within the last year and a half, it has really taken its toll on him and my mother, obviously, who was the caretaker. But he struggles at times, there's no question about it, more often than not. And it's kind of sad to watch, there's no doubt. He's only 78 years old and was probably diagnosed 3 years ago at 75. So it's been a tough 3 years to watch the digression of my dad's symptoms and condition.
Claire, I wanted to talk a little bit about the causes. We probably don't understand what caused Lewy body in this form of Alzheimer's in your father. I understand there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Well, there are, and Lewy body is one of over 70 different types of dementia. We think it's to be the third most common type. Affects about 10 to 25% of people who have dementia symptoms, which is really the umbrella. It's the lack of functioning, and with a lot of these types of dementia, Alzheimer's included, we're getting to the core of what makes someone develop the proteins in Lewy body versus the plaques and tangles in Alzheimer's disease with more research. But there's still a lot of unanswered questions about why one person gets it and the other doesn't. The biggest risk factor right now is age. 1 in 9 people over the age of 65 will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's or some type of dementia.
It's frustrating because we can't do anything about our age.
Right, and we're, like you said, a growing, aging state here in Pennsylvania, and I think one of the concerns is that we know so much about what's happening in the brain, but we're not sure of those underlying causes yet. And so there's a lot of speculation in research, there's a lot of speculation in diet and exercise, and all of those things are good, but we still don't know what that true root cause is to prevent, which is what's causing us to not have a good, effective prevention.
Now, how does Alzheimer's differ from dementia?
So Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease like Lewy body, like other types of dementia. Dementia we consider to be the umbrella term. It really is the functioning, the lack of functioning of enough severity that it impairs our daily functioning. So we all get older. We're all, walk into a room, forget why we walked in there. The difference between that and non-normal aging or dementia is it really does impact your daily life. It impacts your ability to do your laundry, to grocery shop, to manage your household, manage your finance, because it's really impairing your memory, your thinking, your reasoning, and your ability to live independently.
So what are those early warning signs we have to look for? In the package we just saw, they talked about things like getting lost or disoriented in some place like the grocery store, someplace you're very familiar with, or having trouble managing a checkbook. What are some of the other signs?
So obviously memory loss is the biggest warning sign, but it's important to remember when we're talking about memory loss, we're talking about short-term memory. remembering who your first grade teacher was, remembering where you grew up, those are all of our long-term memories that stay intact a lot longer. Short-term memory is, what did I have for breakfast? Did I take my medication? Is the kettle on? And so memory loss is sort of that biggest warning sign, but it's also that ability to sort of be able to reason, to be able to think abstractly, to be able to understand the difference between day and night and not get your times confused. And wandering or getting lost in familiar places is also a very common occurrence.
Wandering, from what I understand, is a very big challenge for people.
It is, and wandering to the point of getting lost is a more moderate stage symptom for someone with Alzheimer's or related dementia, and we know that about 70% of people will wander at one time throughout the progression of their disease, and it's a very scary occurrence because we're talking about getting lost coming home in a car, we're getting lost going out to get your mail and getting turned around, and if not found within 24 hours, 48% will succumb to either hypothermia or dehydration.
It's scary. Tim, what were the first signs that you noticed with Dad?
Well, Claire mentions some familiar things. There's no question about that. I can remember a picnic at our house early on, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm the baseball coach at DeSales University, so my father comes to the picnic, and I have a DeSales T-shirt on, and he looks at my T-shirt and says, "So do you have a son that plays there?" And both of my sons played at DeSales years prior to that. So I'm like, okay. And then he quickly caught it and sort of corrected himself. There was a story that my mother took him to a diner to eat, and there was a salad bar, and my dad got up, went to the salad bar, came back and sat in a different booth with somebody else, and kind of, again, I think he recognized sort of what was going on and passed it off, and then went ahead and sat with my mom. And also, as one other, early on, my wife Roseanne and I took our dads to a Phillies game for Father's Day, and he's sitting next to me, and this is where the paranoia and hallucinations started to come in. He suggested that the folks next to him were trying to stick him with a syringe, that they were out to get him. If they were going to get him, they were going to get us, so he was very protective, but it was quite a story. And, initially you start talking to them and you try to correct them and say, no, that's not very true. And as time goes on, I don't think that that's really the way to go. It's more so of, kind of going to the level and just so they don't harm themselves or harm other people, I think is the way we've kind of addressed that as my dad's condition has progressed.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, is that you just want to, I don't want to say keep them happy, but you want to, and not go along with it, but you don't want to do anything that's going to agitate or frustrate these patients, right?
So go with the flow is the best motto any caregiver can learn. What we have to remember about what the brain is doing in any of the dementias, it's changing it. It's a physical change that's happening to the brain. So it changes our ability to recognize reality from fiction. And so it's really important that you don't try and bring them back to reality, because in their mind, this is really happening. So if we were to start having a conversation and I start to tell you something that's not true and you try to remind me, people argue, they get into sort of scuffles about things, and that's where, for caregivers, it's so frustrating, because as the caregiver, you have to constantly be wrong. You have to admit that you're always the person that's wrong, and that the person with the disease is always right, even though we know they're probably not. It's going with the flow. It's providing them comfort and support. And the only time we say we don't recommend that is when safety is truly a factor. Okay. If the sky wants to be red, let the sky be red. Who's it hurting by the sky being red? But if we're talking about, I can really drive when I've been in 3 fender benders and I really don't know the difference between a red light and a green light. That's where, unfortunately, families have to make those tough decisions and get professionals involved, like a physician who would work to take away a license and work with the family on those things. So safety is the only time I say don't go with the flow.
And Tim, your father still lives at home, so primary caregiving falls on your mother.
Yeah, my mom's a saint. She's unbelievable. And it's that generation, I was talking to Claire previously, it's that Pennsylvania Dutch. As Claire mentioned, they dig in their heels, and this is my duty as the wife to take care of my husband. And she's phenomenal. I don't know how she does it. I really don't. But she has opened the door here in the last year for others to help her. We have a caregiver that comes in on a Tuesday for her to just give her some quiet time. You know, we'll take my father from time to time. But there's some emotional breakdowns that happen, you know, more often than not, where I'm the phone call. And, you know, Tim, Pop's, you know, out of control. Can you come down? Can you talk to him? And when the way I see it, I'm there every day. I see that it's kind of typical behavior on his part. But my mom gets to an overflow, boiling point where, you know, she just can't take it anymore. And I'd say, you know, understand, Mom, it's not a problem. I get it. I'm so sorry I had to call you, you know, those kinds of things. And, you know, I feel bad for her sometimes, and she's taking care of my dad, and she mentioned recently she's lonely because, you know, there's really no relationship. There really is not.
Claire, where are we in terms of finding a cure to this?
Well, you know, we're not as far along as I think we all hoped we would be 10 years ago. I can tell you that there's wonderful research happening right here in the Delaware Valley, from, you know, in Philadelphia and New Jersey and in parts of Delaware, where we're on the cutting edge of great research. But there's still a lot we don't know about the disease. You know, there are more studies that come out every day that have promising treatments, and I think that's where I see the sort of pattern of research progression and positive research progression. It's in an effective treatment now as opposed to looking for a cure.
Okay. And I know that your passion is prevention.
I like to get in front of it, Laura, somehow. I look at my dad and I'm like, gosh, is that going to be me? You know, who knows? I'm 54, so, you know, 20 years, you know, before. That worries me a lot, and I've always thought in my mind, try to keep it simple enough to try to keep your brain active, to try to do some things that kind of keep you engaged, you know, whether it's a crossword puzzle or, you know, a word search or anything like that. But I also think that emotionally, I think there's 4 pillars that are really important for folks as they move forward and to hopefully prevent, perhaps. You know, number 1 is have something to do. You know, my dad retired and he had nothing to do. Number 2 is something to look forward to. My dad's something to look forward to were my sons who played baseball at DeSales to go to their games. Well, those days are now over. And number 3 is something to believe in, and obviously faith is important. You know, and lastly, it's something to love, somebody to love. And I think if all those 4 things are in place, you've got a chance to stay stable. One of those goes away, like something to do, and then something to look forward to. I think really accelerated my father's potential, you know, for some kind of dementia. I really believe that. So I think I try to keep it simple in the lay terms to try to keep those things in place. And, you know, it's scary. There's no question about it. So how do we get in front? And research is probably the answer, and we need enough money to try to be able to do that. But what do we do so we can tell the young folks, my generation and generations before? I'm probably still one of those guys that'll dig the heels in and say, take care, but I'm not so sure it's beyond me with the younger folks. So what do we do to try to help them and help them understand, you know, in the future? So hopefully, you know, we all can stay healthy, and especially, you know, mentally.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your insight. Claire Day of the Alzheimer's Association and Tim Neiman, thank you so much for being with us today. You know, many people go to a nursing home following a hospitalization, but this may actually be the worst time to choose a facility, especially if there's a possibility that you may not return to independent living. Selecting a nursing home presents challenges under even the best conditions. Right now, 3.3 million Americans live in the nation's 16,000 nursing homes, and that figure is destined to rise as the baby boom generation continues to age. Tempo in Depth's Grover Silcox visited both a continuing care community in Bethlehem and spoke with an advocate for the elderly to learn about how to choose a nursing home.
Here we are.
87-year-old Janet Lindgren suffers from the early stages of dementia.
There's you and Dad. I love that picture of you and Dad.
2 years ago, Janet's husband Roy died, and her own health began to slide. Her daughter Janet and her other children agreed that she needed round-the-clock care at a nursing home. They chose Country Meadows in Bethlehem, a continuing care community with a skilled nursing center.
I come once a week for a visit, and she will introduce me to the staff on every visit and say, this is my daughter Janet, as if they've never met me before.
But Country Meadows staff know daughter Janet well and apprise her of Mom's issues. It's one of the reasons her family selected this home.
Whenever there is any kind of a medical issue, they call to either keep me informed or to get my input on what I would like to do.
Janet made a good choice for her mom, but everyone has different needs, and people should compare nursing homes before committing to one.
Medicare.gov is a good place to go because they have information about all the nursing homes as well as their survey data, so you know how, when the licensure agency goes out to review them, you know how they perform.
The Federal Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services surveys nursing homes and gives them a star rating from 1 to 5, 5 being the top.
I'm not particularly a big fan of the star rating because it's not a hotel, and things change day to day in nursing homes, and I think you need to look further.
A lot of it is gut feeling and common sense, and absolutely visiting the place.
When you visit, you'll want to use all your senses. Country Meadows seems spotless and odor-free when we visit it.
You want to go in and you want to make sure people are being cared for.
At Country Meadows, nurses and CNAs seem forever on the move.
Skilled nursing is 24-hour skilled nursing care. So your registered nurses, your RNs, your licensed practical nurses, your LPNs, your certified nursing assistants, they are there to be able to do the maximum amount of care.
You'll also want to check the food and how staff assists residents at mealtime.
Every week when I come out, I fill Mom's menu out for the next week, and it's varied and it's delicious.
The nursing assistants go in and they document on what meals they've had.
You'll also want to explore overall resident activities and physical therapy.
We do all of our therapy here on site. It's for 2 hours a day, so an hour of occupational, an hour of physical therapy a day. In addition to that, we also do offer speech services.
You might also want to inquire whether the home has a religious affiliation, if that's important. Or, does it offer religious services? Sometimes distance or proximity is the deciding factor.
If you can visit them every day because they're across the street versus, 10 miles away and you don't have a car or whatever it is, that might be the best place because having a family member, having a visitor there on a regular basis means a lot.
And of course, you'll want to determine cost. Does the home take Medicare and Medicaid? You'll want to know that.
There you go.
Ultimately, your greatest asset may be your children or those you cared for and raised, now making sure you get the respect and love you gave them. For Tempo in Depth, I'm Grover Silcox reporting.
Thanks, Grover. Joining me now, a number of guests who live at a variety of retirement communities across the region. We'll start by introducing Ed Donnelly. Ed is the president of the Residents Association at Kirkland Village in Bethlehem. Next to Ed, we have Georgia Baldrige. Georgia is the vice president for the Residents Association at Luther Crest in Allentown. Next to Georgia, George Chapman is the vice president of the Residents Association at Moravian Village in Bethlehem. And finally, Helen Monroe is the resident council president at Westminster Village in Allentown. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you so much for being here. Ed, let's start with you. How did you know that it was time for a move?
Well, my wife Inez and I lived in Allentown for 50 years, and our children were born there, and we considered that our permanent home. But then early, about 2002, it began to be evident that she was experiencing the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. Mm-hmm. And I had had a number of relationships. I was a founding member of the board of this television channel, and also the Lehigh Valley Hospice and Lehigh Valley Hospital. So we had a number of friends who were deeply involved with this activity, and we just began asking questions, and we heard over and over again that the Kirkland Village Alzheimer's unit had been established for quite some time and was seasoned and ready to take additional patients. We postponed that for some time, but then Inez fell and fractured her pelvis, and it became an emergency. And we had not done any formal research, but had talked with a number of different knowledgeable people, and so we came to Kirkland Village. and we've had a very excellent time there. Now, she died nearly 2 months ago, but she had the disease for more than 10 years.
Oh, we're so sorry for your loss. So you moved out of necessity, but did anybody else move just because they could tell that it was time for that change? Georgia, I know that you said...
Well, my husband had some health problems several years ago, about 5 years ago, and we had looked at Luther Crest before, and then he said maybe we should really look at it. So we did, and we decided it was the time to go, because that's very important that you go before you really need it. I mean, you go to enjoy it, and that's why we were there.
George, I saw you shaking your head and nodding in agreement.
Well, I agree with what you said. We did it a little differently. We decided in our case 10 years before we went that we were going to go.
10 years?
We were living in a condo in Silicon Valley, and in our early 70s we decided that by our early 80s we might need help in a physical way, and made up our minds that in 10 years we would move. And that's exactly what happened. We moved into Moravian Village 10 years after we made the decision, and we've been very happy with our decision.
Helen, how did you know it was time for the move?
Well, I was just tired of cleaning my house.
That sounds familiar to a lot of people, I'm sure.
That is exactly right, and things were starting to bother me, you know. The legs weren't working as good as they should, and I just decided to go to a place that I knew was going to be good, because I used to go to Westminster Village when it was Central Park and go on all the rides. And they also at one time had movies, the outdoor movies. I used to go to those because I lived up on Club Avenue, and I decided, well, I would come here and see it.
So for the group, what were those factors that played a role in your decision for which home or which community you chose?
For us, we lived in the West End, and our son said, he said, your church is here, your family, your friends are here, and you know the area, and so why wouldn't you want to go to Luther Crest? And we also had friends there. But so we really didn't move that far, and it's been wonderful. We've loved it.
For you, location was a contributing factor. George, what were some of the factors that helped make your decision on which community was the right community for you?
Well, I think one factor was the factor of security. We wanted a place that had continuing care, had long-term or short-term care.
For some of our people who don't know, what does he mean by continuing care?
That if you can no longer live independently, that you have the option of moving into a part of your community where you have special care, special facilities to take care of you, and that they can perform the duties on a daily basis that you can no longer perform.
So in other words, they have both independent living, personal care, and skilled nursing. They have those different levels.
And in our case, we also had a physical therapy unit on site, and all of these things led us to feel this is a place that we like to go. There were many other factors, but that was one. We were also concerned that timing in our case was a critical factor. We had looked at a number of other units where once you made a contract, they wanted you to move in right away. In the case of our situation, when we were ready to move, the construction of Moravian Village was underway. It was in an area that we knew, and they had the facilities we were interested in. They also gave us about 6 months before we had to make the move. And this was wonderful. We had time to go on a vacation we had planned. We had time to sell our house, sell our furniture, things we didn't need, and prepare our unit for what we wanted it to be. And all of these were important.
And Ed, you had to look very closely at some place that would have an Alzheimer's unit to serve your wife, correct?
We had so many friends who were associated with the whole complex of senior care one way or another that we had the impression that there were many good places here in the Lehigh Valley. And that tempted us to postpone making the decision. We'll decide that someday. And then the crisis occurred when Inez fell and was injured, and we had to move right away. And Kirkland fortunately had a room available, and we could move in right away, and so that decision sort of dictated itself for us.
I think it's very important for people when they do make the move to make sure they do have the health care, because that we have that at Luther Crest, and if you have to go to the health center, you're right there. You can. We also have benevolent care that if you run out of money, they're there to help you. So it's a lifetime guarantee, really.
Do they help you? Are you talking about Medicare and Social Security?
Oh yes. But then if you have we have 8 people that are over 100 years old, and certainly money doesn't last all that long. And
right, at that point, you've been retired for 30 to 40 years.
Yeah. So with their Medicare or whatever, or Medicaid or Social Security, but then we also have the Benevolent Care Fund, which helps people, and we have several people on that.
Well, when the nicest part about Westminster Village is that if you can no longer pay your rent, they allow you to stay because they care about people, not just money.
So you got that sense that there was a
Right.
real feeling of community.
Right.
Did all 4 of you get that sense
Yes.
in visiting?
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that.
That was
I
important.
love it at the Westminster.
That was good.
I do.
I'm just curious, who did you involve in your decision? Did you involve children, friends?
My children.
Helen, you involved your children? Who else?
Yes, our children.
Children.
We involved our children, but we wanted to make the decision ourselves.
Right.
We did not want the children to come and say, you're moving and you're moving here or there. So we talked to them, but it was our decision as far as time and location was concerned.
Okay. Ed, who else did you involve in your decision?
Well, we involved people from the hospice unit, people from
So you had
the
medical
Lehigh Valley
professionals
Hospital,
helping.
and our children were involved in every step of the way, but it was really a family decision. There was no disagreement or even shadow of different opinions.
How much research did you do? I know, Georgia, you said I hardly did any. Did anybody do a lot of research? I know you made your decision many, many years ahead of time, George. How much research did you do?
One day.
One day.
I went to Kirkland, and then I went to Westminster. And I found that Westminster was better for me than Kirkland. Because, like I said, the apartments were larger at Westminster, which suited me.
Well, I'm curious, as we're running out of time, would each of you share one piece of advice for someone who was in your shoes maybe 5 to 10 years ago and they're trying to decide where to spend their retirement? Helen, what piece of advice would you share?
Make sure that you check on the benefits that you get from the village, like Westminster Village. Make sure that you check on that.
George, what's the number one piece of advice you would share?
Make the decision before you are forced to make the decision, if you can. Don't wait until it's a crisis, if possible. Have time to think about it, to make your plans, and to make them work.
Georgia, what's that?
I would
one?
definitely say make your plans before you really need to go, because there's so many wonderful things to do, and you want to be able to come in and enjoy your life while you're there. And it's a great place. I love it.
Ed, what's your one
Well,
piece
we've
of
heard
advice?
some very good advice to make the decision before you need to make it. If we had to do it over, we would have done that. We'd have observed the warning signals and made the decision earlier. But it worked out just beautifully.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your advice. I think we're going to help a lot of people with this
Thank you.
conversation. While a retirement community was the right choice for these guests, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to senior housing. Some people don't have a choice, but others, like my grandparents, decide to live with family or to continue living in the home where they're still comfortable. I recently sat down with one Bethlehem woman who, despite her health challenges, remains committed to her independence. Here's how she makes it work. For many, retirement dreams lead them to snowbird in Florida, sail into the sunset, or spend sunny days on the golf course. But for others, a real retirement hole-in-one is something much simpler.
I've been independent, I guess, for a long time, and I wanted to stay that way. Well, if you're going shopping on Saturday, there's some things I need from the market.
Okay. Genevieve Allmeyer's independence remains a top priority for the 84-year-old Bethlehem woman, as well as for her daughter Elise.
I think you have to think it out and plan it. And I think the first thing is to simplify your life.
Even after a recent hospitalization for heart failure, Genevieve remains committed to living on her own.
Well, I was thinking, heart failure, how'd I get that? How am I going to manage? What am I going to do?
Under your tongue?
With regular checkups from the visiting nurses at St. Luke's University Health Network, Genevieve avoids taxing trips to the doctor's office.
You know, it was a very scary thing. It's a scary word. So we do explain what is heart failure, how did you get to this point, what were the risk factors, and how do we manage it?
They've just been wonderful. They come in and they visit. I mean, it's not just, well, take this pill, take that pill. They're really interested in what you're doing and how's your family and how are you doing.
Okay, 97.5, no fever.
When they come in, they're able to, listen to her and what her issues are for the day or the week or whatever she's having. They help her so she doesn't have to run to the doctor every time there's a problem.
Once to twice a week, Nurse Susan Rodriguez or one of her colleagues visits Genevieve in her home for 45 minutes to an hour. They monitor her heart and lungs, temperature, pulse, and blood pressure.
Your blood pressure is 160 over 70. People may want to be independent, but is it a safe thing? So we do look at that. How can we make your home safe? What are the things that we could put in place?
One of the first things they put in place when they started visiting Genevieve in December of 2012 was this telehealth monitoring system.
Good afternoon. It is now time to record your vital signs.
This machine checks Genevieve's blood pressure, weight, and pulse every morning and sends it directly to Susan.
And it allows us to see patients even when we're not here.
Though she no longer drives and some chores have gotten more difficult with age, Genevieve has adjusted with grace.
Healthcare worker will come in tomorrow and do some shopping for me.
A few mornings each week, a home worker comes in to help with cleaning, cooking, shopping, and errands. Plus, Elise lives nearby, and she and her siblings check in with their mother often.
When I go shopping, I always get a list of things that my mother would need, and I'll do some shopping for her. I try to take her with me whenever I can and whenever she's up to it, so we can do things together.
Would you like a cookie?
With that support, Genevieve says it is possible to stay in the home you know and love. Statistics show that about 30% of older adults live alone, but staying independent doesn't mean you can't get help doing it. To help us learn more about the ways to age in place, I'm joined by members of the Lehigh Valley Senior Services Council. Darla Hively runs Senior Solutions, a geriatric care management service, and she's brought with her a very rare person these days, geriatrician Dr. Nancy Urankar. Doctor, I understand you still exclusively make house calls.
That is correct.
Why do people need this service nowadays?
There are people who just are better served at home. The demented patient, for instance, is better seen in their home, going out of the home, waiting in the doctor's office, perhaps, makes them more anxious. Being in a different environment is more difficult for them. Folks who have more difficulty walking, people who have emphysema, perhaps, with a very advanced arthritis. It's easier having them be seen at home.
Had you run an opportunity
Yes.
in an office, and
Yes.
how did you decide to make that change?
I just thought that people were better served at home, and the milieu these days of an office practice, I didn't think served people as well. And I thought I could do a better job if I could see the environment of people in their home. So often People have carpets that they can slip on. If I have a person with troubles with congestive heart failure, I can go and open up their cupboards. I can look in their refrigerator and see, are there foods that the diabetic shouldn't have. You can't do that in an office setting. You can look at their medication bottles, see if things are being mixed up. It's much harder to do that in an office setting where time constraints are much more restricted.
And Darla, you run Senior Solutions, which is a geriatric care management service. That's a very broad term. What does that include?
A geriatric care manager is a professional, usually from the area of social work, nursing, counseling, or other health-related backgrounds, that helps seniors find a way through the maze of services available. We serve as advisors, advocates, and guides. We help people develop a plan. Seniors and their families come to us, and we help them develop a plan for the future that's going to work with their particular set of circumstances. Sometimes they need help putting that plan into action, in which case we help them facilitate the change, making arrangements for services, etc., or helping them with the move. Or sometimes they don't have family nearby to stop in and just give them the little bit of monitoring that will allow them to remain independent in their own home as they so desire.
So Darla, you joined Dr. Urankar and you formed the Lehigh Valley Senior Services Council. Why did you decide to form this coalition of services of all kinds?
Well, actually, we have to give credit to Mr. Tom Mazer, who was the founder. He was a man who worked in financial planning for many years in the Lehigh Valley, and he sadly passed this past year. But it is our pleasure to be able to continue with his mission and with his vision. He inspires us every day to go on to be able to provide services to seniors. And we are really a consortium of private service providers to seniors and their families who come together to form like a one-stop access to services for seniors, because people just don't know where to begin. They give us one call, and we know which professionals to refer them to for the other things that they need as well. And our services include things like a realtor to help people appraise their home, price it, and sell it if they so desire to make a move. A senior move manager who helps make that possible, because a lot of people fear the idea of downsizing after 30, 40, 50 years in their same home. It also includes in-home non-medical care through Seniors Helping Seniors. Our move manager is Joel Aswell from Golden Transitions. Our realtor is Jeanette Peruso from Weikert. And we also have an elder lawyer, Wendy Ashby, who couldn't be with us today due to a court emergency. And together, we provide many services to seniors and get them going in the directions they need to help them retain their independence.
Out of curiosity, are you hearing more from seniors or from their children trying to help them find services to help them maybe age in place? Or
as Darla was mentioning the members, I was going to say we often hear from the children, and it's almost with seniors. It's if you remember how it is taking care of your kids when they're little, and having to take off work to help parents take care of all the problems that they have when they're older. We also do educational seminars at businesses. Because children need to understand the problems that seniors run into. And we try and help the community to understand that as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Darla Hively. So nice to see you. And Dr. Urankar, thank you so much for offering the services that you offer, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, arthritis strikes in many forms and to varying degrees. Sufferers may find it mildly painful, while others become severely debilitated by it. The disease afflicts more than 50 million Americans. 27 million of those suffer from one of the most common forms, osteoarthritis. It typically begins in middle age and grows progressively worse. Arthritis is one of the leading causes of disability, with an economic impact of more than $128 billion annually. Tempo in Depth's Grover Silcox met with a family doctor and one of his patients to get a first-hand look at arthritis and its impact.
Getting in the car seems so simple, but arthritic pain can make it difficult. Just ask Elise Intrepido, who has moderate osteoarthritis.
It just seems to hit different spots. Like right now, it's really in my knee. It goes away. But when it's there, it really is painful.
1 in 5 Americans suffer from some form of arthritis, defined by inflammation in the joints and often the breakdown of cartilage, which serves as a cushion between the bones.
For some people, it's just something that they put up with, and they do okay with analgesics or pain medications, or a combination of Tylenol or ibuprofen and some joint supplements.
Elise suffers from moderate arthritis and usually finds relief through basic medications, but others suffer from more serious bouts or types, where joints degenerate and require stronger meds and even joint replacement.
It probably starts late 40s, mid 50s, and then it is probably very prominent throughout the 50s and into the 60s.
Osteoarthritis affects more women over 50 than men.
It started out like maybe I had pain in my elbow for quite a while that really hurt. And but I didn't say anything at first to the doctor. I just thought I was getting older. And but then eventually it went into my wrist. And then the next year I noticed it was in my thumb.
At 67, Elise works full-time and enjoys life. The arthritis hasn't prohibited her from most activities.
See, I don't really feel that it holds me back. And that I'm grateful for. Yeah. I just took it as this is just part of getting older and you deal with it.
She deals with it by avoiding certain movements or doing them more carefully. She used to hold the phone on her shoulder while doing something else, but that led to pain in her neck. She scrubs the floor less and uses the vacuum more to avoid bending down.
I had taken some online courses, and I was on the computer a lot then, and that was a little bit difficult. But now that it's moved from there into my knee, I can use a computer.
Doctors often administer cortisone shots in knees and other joints when basic meds fail to relieve pain. If the joint, such as the knee, severely degenerates, it may call for replacement. Osteoarthritis results in 632,000 joint replacements a year nationwide.
Some factors that go along with degenerative arthritis, being overweight, obesity can sometimes lead to more joint strain and stress. Prior injuries, prior broken bones.
In spite of her sore knees, Elise still exercises. Strengthening muscles around the joints helps support the joints and eases the pain.
I do almost anything I want to do. I just have to be careful.
Elise, like millions of other aging baby boomers, takes the aches and pains of arthritis in stride, managing it where she can, happy that it doesn't keep her from living the life she loves. For Tempo in Depth, I'm Grover Silcox, reporting.
So much, Grover. Joining me now from the United Way is Corey Rallone, the director of the Lehigh Valley Alliance on Aging. Corey, thanks so much for being with us today. Now, we talked about arthritis. Another common ailment, osteoporosis, is often associated with falls that we see in seniors.
That's true, and we have a number of programs that United Way supports that deal with fall prevention and trying to help older adults to avoid falls.
How many seniors are living in our community here in the Lehigh Valley region?
Well, it's interesting. We have about 100,000 older adults that live here in the Lehigh Valley, and that rate is increasing dramatically. From the time between 2000 and 2010, we saw a 17% increase in older adults over the age of 65.
Yeah, and baby boomers just began to hit retirement age in the last couple of years, and so we're going to see that huge.
That's true.
Huge growth.
The 17% increase actually came before the baby boomers began to turn 65, and so in 2011, the baby boomers started to age, and they started to move from being caretakers to people who needed to be taken care of.
Are there going to be enough people to take care of this population as they get older?
Well, one of the things that we look at is some statistics that have been generated by the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and they do projections telling how many seniors are expected to live in the Lehigh Valley in 2010, 2020, 2030, and beyond. And we look at those projections, and they also have projections for the caretaker group for people between the ages of 18 and 64. And when we look at that, surprisingly, the number of people between the ages of 18 and 64 are going to decrease, and the number of people over the age of 65 are going to increase. What that means for us is that we won't have as many people in the community who can care for the people who need care.
What does that mean for the people who are aging that need that help?
It's going to be a little bit of a crisis. We've already seen throughout the Lehigh Valley the people who work in direct care positions. Those are direct care workers, people who work in nursing homes, taking care of people in their homes. We see that there are a lot of vacancies already occurring. We're expecting that to increase as the age dependency ratio increases.
I know at the United Way, one of the major areas you look at are daily activities, things like cleaning, errands, chores, cooking.
Right.
How limited are the seniors that we have in our community now in terms of being able to do these things?
Well, we look at two main areas. The first is instrumental activities of daily living, and those are things that people need to do maybe once a month or so, and if they don't do those things, they can't stay in their homes. So things like grocery shopping, being able to pay their own bills. We have about 15,000 older adults in the Lehigh Valley that are having those types of difficulties. And then the second group we look at are activities of daily living. Those are things that an older adult needs to do every single day. Things like bathing, dressing, being able to feed themselves and make short moves from the couch to the bed. We have about 6,500 older adults in the Lehigh Valley who have those types of difficulties. And the most important thing to realize in those statistics is that that does not include institutionalized people. So we're not talking about people in nursing homes or people in assisted living. These are people living in their homes every day who need help to stay in their homes.
So what resources is the United Way able to connect them with?
Well, in January of last year, Pennsylvania became the last state to adopt 211. 211 is a service that you can use just like 911, and from any phone you dial 211 and you're connected to a case manager operator who can give you referrals for things like where you might be able to move, where you might be able to get food, where you might be able to get assistance of any kind.
I know that your resources were extremely helpful to us putting together this project because it helped guide us to, what are the agencies that are helping people.
Right.
Are you hearing, like I asked of Dr. Uranka earlier, are you hearing more from seniors or from their children who are trying to get them
surprisingly,
services?
we hear a lot from both. Right now, as we're starting to see the baby boomers age, we're starting to see a whole generation of people who did not have a spouse, who have never been married, who were divorced, or people that don't have children who live in the area. So we see seniors who are calling for help directly, but we also see neighbors and friends who are just watching out for people in their community.
What are the different types of resources that 211 and the United Way can connect them to?
Well, we have a number of high-quality programs that the United Way funds. And those are things like Meals on Wheels, senior centers, we have home health aid programs, we have transportation programs, and then we have some innovative programs that are really new this year, things like grocery shopping programs. And those are programs for older adults who might be able to prepare their own food, but they're not able to do their own grocery shopping.
Yeah, that's a taxing activity to not only travel, but then it's a lot of walking and reaching in the grocery store. When we talk about food specifically, I know how is access to food for seniors and access to healthy food especially?
Well, we find that older adults generally are able to get food either through SNAP benefits or through a variety of programs. The difficulty really comes in getting healthy food. Just last week, I got to be a guest deliverer for Meals on Wheels of Lehigh County, and we met this wonderful man, and he told me his personal story. He had lived through 2 strokes and decided that that was it. He was going to take control of his life. He signed up for Meals on Wheels on purpose because they provide healthy meals. And through the help of Meals on Wheels and walking every day, he's lost 50 pounds and has not had another stroke.
Wow, that's a really inspirational story, and I'm sure that for every one that we're hearing about, there's 10 more out there that we don't. Thank you so much for being with us, Corey. Older adults are one of the United Way's target populations, so if you or someone you know could use some help, you can reach Corey's organization at unitedwayglv.org, or as Corey mentioned, by calling 211. She mentioned this is a newer service designed to connect area residents to resources that can help. Next, you can learn more about all the signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease at alz.org. And finally, you can find your local area agency on aging by going to the State Department of Aging's website. That's aging.state.pa.us. Click on the left-hand side, just click on Local Resources. Well, we will have a special drawing for our studio audience after the show tonight. Sands Casino Resort Bethlehem has donated a $50 gift certificate, good for use at the shops, restaurants, and event center. So many thanks to the Sands. And thank you for joining us. We hope to see you in our audience soon. Good night.
The people of Air Products feel privileged to bring this programming to you. By supporting education and the arts, Air Products strives to improve the quality of life here in the Lehigh Valley, where we call home.
How'd you like to be part of a studio audience for a live taping of Tempo in Depth? Join us at the PBS 39 Public Media and Education Center on the Steel Stacks campus in Bethlehem. For free tickets and information, 610-867-4677 extension 333, or go online to tempo.wlvt.org. I hope to see you soon.
In 1948, John Walson put an antenna on top of a mountain and ran a cable back to his television store. Cable TV was born. Now, over 60 years later, his vision has changed the way we get our information, from super high-speed internet to stunning high-definition television. Service Electric is committed to leading the way in the community with the best coverage of local high school, college, and professional sports, and groundbreaking technology in this ever-changing world.